Nelson didn't know what to make of it. He just kept walking towards the park and staring up at the sky. He nearly tripped crossing the street when his foot got caught in the gutter. When he made it to the east entrance, Winfield and Lieutenant Haywood were waiting for him, as were several hundred other people who'd gathered at that late hour to see what the light was. Most of them had dressing gowns and robes thrown over night clothes. Winfield and Haywood were keeping people out of the park. Nelson walked over to the entrance and stared up at the thing. It was now just a few dozen yards above the ground, just over the treetops. Nelson looked at Winfield. The man returned the look, expecting him to explain everything. Nelson turned around. The crowd was silent, but waiting for him to do something. It's like something put of one of those Jules Verne novels," Nelson grunted. He had no idea what Winfield was talking about. "I guess I should have a closer look." He hesitated, hoping that someone else would have a better idea. When nobody spoke up, he entered the park. He kept his eyes on the green thing as he walked across the grass meadow. As he grew closer, he could make out rivets and seams in the hull. It had to be some kind of flying contraption, he decided. But whose? His stomach began to feel a bit unsettled as he thought about the possibility of it being some kind of war machine, perhaps a submarine of the sky. He reached down to tap the edge of his holster when his foot hit something. There was a loud scream. Nelson fumbled with the catch to pull his gun free. Several shapes low to the ground came running past him, all of them making bleeding-like sounds. As his gun came free, he realized they weren't making bleeding-like sounds. They were bleeding, because they were sheep. The flying machine was hovering over the sheep's meadow in the park. They, in turn, all decided at the same time that it was a good idea to leave. Nelson put his gun back in his holster, although he wasn't sure if the sheep had the right idea after all. He reached the edge of the clearing where the strange object was now hovering only a few dozen yards off the ground. Now what? Nelson wasn't quite sure what his civic duties were at this point. Should he shout at it? Ask them to leave? Ask who to leave? Almost in answer to his question, a large shaft of light poured out of the underside of the craft. The buzzing sound he realized that he'd heard all the way back at the boarding house had grown louder. Something was happening. He hoped it wasn't a bad thing, but couldn't imagine a good thing happening under these circumstances. The light shut off below the craft. Something now stood underneath it. Nelson thought it was another strange device at first. Then it moved. Only loosely man-shaped, it was definitely not man-sized, and it was carrying something massive in its arms. The strange man had to be 9 feet tall by Nelson's reckoning. It had 2 arms, 2 very long legs that ended in heavy boots. For a head, it had a large red globe that seemed to be filled with red gas. It looked kind of like a deep-sea diving suit, with the exception of the single globe for a helmet. Nelson was still trying to figure out what he was looking at before he realized it was walking towards him. He wanted to run away. He touched the holster of his gun again and flipped open the catch. "Stop right where you are!" Nelson shouted. The strange man kept walking towards him. "Stop, or I'll shoot!" Nelson raised his gun on the strange man. "Put away your weapon, earthling," a loud voice echoed across the meadow. Nelson gripped the gun with both hands. A blinding flash of blue light shot into his eyes. Something knocked him over. When he looked up, the strange man was towering over him. He raised his gun to fire, then noticed the barrel was bent 90 degrees to the side. The strange man turned the large gray object he was carrying and set it down at Nelson's feet. It made a loud thud and sank into the grass. "We bring you greetings from the Martian Emperor."